There's one thing in my life that's missing. It's the time that I feel alone, staring at the dark and cold clear water. Time for a cool change. I know that it's time for a cool change. And now that my life is so rearranged, I know that it's time for a cool change. Hey, how's it going? Christian here from Wit and Wisdom from the Midnight Rider. How's everybody doing today? Well, the reason why I ask how you're doing is I don't think we ask everybody how they're doing often enough. At least we don't ask them and mean it. I've picked up too many people recently, kids, with real problems. Because we have a mental health crisis in our nation, and we're not doing anything about it. It doesn't make anybody any money. So it's not a priority. I have taken people to rehab centers. I have taken people to halfway houses. I have taken people to three-quarter way houses. I have taken them to AA meetings. And I love that they're trying to do all of that stuff, what seemingly seems on their own. But last night I picked up a young kid, I believe from his mom's house. I'm not sure how old he was, but old enough to be in the military for 4 or 5 years and be out, not be able to find a job, worried about being able to keep a job because, at the very least, in his case, he recognizes that he has a problem and he needs help. He actually had kind of a long talk with me after I watched his mom cry on the porch when I picked him up about how his meds aren't right and he just can't get them right, so it's having trouble holding down a job. These kids join the military thinking it's going to be able to pay for their college or afford them a better life or experiences or whatever, and more often than not, at least that I hear about, they come home broken with nothing to help them. I mean, family and friends can only do so much. Private counselors cost money. If you can't have a job because you're on disability and unable to work due to medications or your actual issue, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, whatever, we're missing the boat. We're asking these kids to do things that's tough on them in the state of society. And I know if I talk to some older folks that came home from World War II, they came home tough and rebuilt a nation. But it was different times then, and life expectancy maybe wasn't as far, and I actually wonder if they had the same problems. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have social media. They just went on their lives. I'm sure that many of them were just as broken as these kids that are coming home now. Not to get in politics, because I really try and not do that, but half of these wars that we've sent these kids over to, I don't know what we accomplished or what we were trying to do. And all we've really ended up with is a larger deficit and a bunch of broken kids. I think military should be about teaching kids trades and, finding them a job after they get out. There should be a program where they come home and they don't have to go to college, but maybe we put them in mechanic school, plumber school, electrician school, cable lineman, road infrastructure, something. We got to find something for them to do, because they come home with all this idle time, which creates too much time to think. I dropped this kid off last night at the VA, and all he kept saying, before we got there was, I really hope that they let me in. He wanted to be able to stay overnight so they could observe him and they could look at his meds, because he just needed to get his meds right. It sounds like he's been going back and back and back, and a lot of times he says they send him home. Just because nothing's physically wrong with you doesn't mean that he doesn't need help. I mean, this kid obviously needs help, and the biggest part about it is he's one of the few that recognizes he needs help. And I think if one of these kids walk in that emergency room and say, this is what's going on, I need help, then we need to help them. There needs to be private programs to help them find jobs. Maybe not private programs. Maybe that's what we should be spending our military budget on. There I am going back to politics, but we have a real mental health crisis in our nation, and we need to do something about it. We got to start taking care of these kids that we send off to other countries when they come home. What can you do? What can we do? Wounded Warrior Project's a good one. I know that there's other programs out there. Let's do some research together and figure it out. Today's more like rant and rave instead of wit and wisdom, and I apologize for that, but sometimes it just makes me angry and sad that we're not taking care of these kids. What can we do? This has been Christian from Wit and Wisdom, Rant and Rave, from the Midnight River. Peace out.